Okay, Homes Are Good by Nate Hicks. That's me. You guys can see this?
I like it.
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, so I just want to discuss a potential upzoning issue and how we can sort of go forward. A lot of you have heard me talk on this a lot anyway, but seeing how we all have a lot of time, I put together a nice little presentation. So here we are. Honolulu unaffordability. And please, if there are any questions, if I'm moving too fast, please be sure to stop me, ask clarifying questions. If someone gets stuck, we don't want to just run on without them. So, okay, of the 310,000 households that live just in Honolulu, on Oahu, 55,000 of them are low-income households and spend more than half of their income on housing, okay? That's a significant sum, right? More than 1 in 6 households are spending half their income just on housing. If we expand the numbers a little bit, we have 80,000 low-income households spending more than 35% of their income on housing. So this is a real issue for a lot of people, okay? So as Keith had mentioned, one of the ways that we've had tried to address this, is the Rental Housing Revolving Fund, right? HHFDC units using LIHTC funds and whatnot. Last year, we put $200 million into the fund, and that gives us about 1,000 units, okay? If we need 55,000 units to take care of that large population, it will cost the state $11 billion, and it would take us over 55 years to complete. So although the HHFDC funding is very important, it's really not going to be enough to address our need. Okay. Another approach that we've taken thus far is the Airbnb ban, right? Just last August, I think it was, the Airbnb ban went into effect, and it did have an impact, right? Rents declined about 10% in the specific area for the short time after the ban went into effect, pretty much showing when you increase the supply of homes that are available to the local population, you can see rents decline, right? It's a simple supply and demand reality. But that brings us to our larger problem of the actual supply of homes in Honolulu, right? Right here, we have the number of housing units for every 100 adults in the largest US metros as of 2017, okay? What you can see here is housing units per 100 adults. Lowest tally here is 40, highest is 60. And you can see over here, not every city is listed. I could only fit 50 here, but in general, the city with the largest housing supply is Youngstown, Ohio. More than 55 housing units for every 100 people. In the middle, we have about Seattle, right? Seattle has a little more than 50 houses for every 100 adults. As we go over here, you can see that we have these green dots. These are the California metro areas, okay? Riverside, LA, Stockton, San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose. They have an incredible housing shortage problem, right? Less than 45 housing units for every 100 adults, well below average and well below the rest of the nation. And then we have to look at this red dot. This is Honolulu. This is how extreme our housing shortage is. Other than Riverside, we have the lowest number of homes per adult population in the US, okay? Our shortage is incredibly, it's incredible. There's no reason we should be this far away from average, right? Again, Seattle has 50 homes. We have about 41. They have 25% more homes than we do, given their population. And what kind of impact does this have on prices? Oh yeah, sorry. Is it not shared, Stanley? Trying to address the question. Are these links not working? Oh, okay, sorry, okay, give me a second. I thought I had done that, my apologies. All right, give me a second here, folks. Okay. Okay, try it now, see if it's working. If not, let me know. Okay, so the question is housing units per 100 adults in largest US metros in 2017. How does this impact prices, right? And so here we have data on, again, same 100 largest metros, but we have data from every year from 2005 to 2017. So for every dot we have is 1 year of one city. So Honolulu has 13 dots, one for 05, one for 06, 07, all the way up to 2017. And you can see here, housing units per 100 adults is here on the x-axis. And we have 13 years of Honolulu data. At one point, we had over 45, we had about 47 housing units for every 100 adults. Now we're over here, okay? And what happens is, as you can see on this y-axis, is how much rent is as a share of the median income. So median rent as share of median income. Right now, median rent is more than 50% of the median income, okay? And as you can tell, of all of these cities, of all 13 years data, when we have more homes, rent prices are substantially less. Now, it's not a proof positive solution, right? There are definitely some cities that have a lot of homes, 55 plus, and still have reasonably high rents, 40% or more. And over here we have cities that are low in terms of housing supply, but have low rents. But in general, right, in general, we have a general trend of more homes correlates to lower rent prices. And so this has sort of gotten the conversation started in, let's make sure we increase our housing supply, right? And if we want to look specifically on whether that will impact Honolulu or not, we have just the last 13 years of data for Honolulu. So I took out all of the other cities and we just have these years here. And you can tell it also follows this general trend, right? Here in 2005, we had more homes per person. And as the years have gone on, we've slowly moved up. 2015 was the worst, but you can see that rents are significantly higher now as a share of income than they were 15 years ago, right? Any questions there? Does everybody understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so does this bear out in data other than these cool graphics? Again, there are some studies that show new housing buildings decrease rents in the adjacent area by about 5 to 7%. We also have market rate construction provides affordable housing openings. So for every 100 new market rate units, they create 70 equivalent units in neighborhoods with household incomes below the median, and 39 in neighborhoods with household incomes from the bottom fifth. So if you build 100 market rate units, there is that domino effect where someone will move out of their current home into the market rate home, leaving that current unit adjacent or open, available. People can move into that unit. And so this study shows for every 100 new market rate units, there are 39 available units in low income neighborhoods that become available, okay? So what has happened here in Honolulu is we have built almost no homes over the last 10 years. This is from the Honolulu annual report. In the 2010s, we have built less than 2,500 units per year, okay? This is historical data over the last 60 years now. And you can see it is possible to build more. In the 70s, we were building upwards of 8,000, 9,000, and 10,000 new units per year. Again, our population was growing as well. But the idea of it being just impossible to build isn't true. We were able to do it, and that was 40 years ago now, right? 40 plus years ago. Our production has completely dried up, But as we've seen it's not like we have enough homes. We need more to be able to catch up, okay? So fortunately, this conversation of making sure we have more homes has been championed by Senator Chang. He has been pushing this issue on a very visible stage and looking at our Singapore model, right? Okay, Singapore approaches their housing very differently. They build state units that are available to local residents, okay, and they built them on a mass scale. And we can take a look at their production, okay? Bear with me, I'm a math teacher, so I love this stuff, but if you hate numbers, my apologies. In the year 2000, Singapore had about 2,400 or 22.4 million adult residents. They had about 200,000 private units and about 840,000 state units. So as units per 100 adults, they had about 42 units for every 100 adults back in the year 2000. And again, just to compare, oops, where are we? Sorry. Just to compare, again, Honolulu currently is at about 42 units per adult. So that's where Singapore was 20 years ago. Now they've built an additional 176,000 new private units on the private market, and they've built 217,000 new state units and have increased their total units to about 45 per 100 adults, okay? So they've been able to build not only private units, but state units and helped relieve their shortage. They're not perfect, obviously. They still have a ways to go, but they are doing better than us. If we were to scale their production in terms of Honolulu, obviously they have a lot more adults, so they have to build more homes. If we were to scale that, it would mean that they're building about 2,400 private units per year and about 3,000 units per year of the state subsidized units, okay? So 2,400 private units, that's about what we're at. We're at a little lower over the last 20 years, but they're throwing in an additional 3,000 per year in state units. So they're building about 5,300 units per year. And that again is scaled to our population size, right? If they had the same number of people, that's the equivalent. Does that make sense? Okay. So yeah, that's what Singapore has been doing. Again, way better than what we have going on. Pursuing this option is great. There's no reason that Hawaii shouldn't be building this many state units per year. But 5,000 units per year is still well short of what we were able to build before and well short of what we need, okay? Why isn't Hawaii building more units? Hawaii's housing market is supply inelastic. A change in demand does not lead to a change in supply in a timely or efficient manner. That leads to low production and high prices, okay? Low production and high prices is because we cannot meet our demand. Honolulu annual report says, we'll just focus on this one here. It should be pointed out that developers do not count population directly, but instead rely on price increases to gauge the degree of population growth. And that makes sense, but that's something that we need to make sure we keep in mind. Developers are the ones creating our housing supply. And they're not actually looking at the population growth and thinking, okay, this is how many homes we need. They wait for prices to rise to then build homes. If we continue to depend on this as a model, we're only going to get homes when prices are incredibly expensive. We're never going to actually lower the price of homes. So this isn't a sustainable model, okay? And why is pricing inelastic? I want to take a look at what LA has going on here. This is the zoning capacity, the amount of potential zoning that could be built in LA. If we go back to the 60s, LA had about a 2.5 million person population, and the amount of potential homes that could be built was about 10 million. And then what happened is zoning really started to get very serious, okay? Good intentioned or bad intentioned, I'm not going to speculate, but the reality is the amount of potential homes that could be built, steadily declined based on zoning changes, okay? So from a potential of 10 million 10 million population capacity, by 1990, that number dropped all the way to 3.9 million, okay? And the population rose to 3.5 million. So the amount of units that the city could potentially have was just barely above its actual population, incredibly shrinking the amount of units that could be built. And as a result, the construction of units in LA slowed. And that is also what happened here in Honolulu, okay? You can see here, if we are aiming for about 50 units for every 100 adults, we need today about 391,000 units in Honolulu available to the local population. We only have 328,000 units, and our zoning is only zoned for an additional 39,000 units, okay? This is going to leave us, if every unit that was legally to be built was built, we would still be short of what our population needs. It's technically illegal to build the necessary units that we need today, okay? And I just wanna, let's think about this on a food scale. Imagine if it was illegal for us to have the amount of food we needed, right? Would we not immediately look at our laws and say, we need to remove this barrier to our food supply? People are starving, people are malnourished. Why do we have this law precluding us from getting enough food? And so this is where I look at it is, we need to increase the capacity of our zoning. We need to make sure that it's legal and possible for us to build the units we need. If we project this out for another 10 years, we're going to need about 421,000 units, and our capacity is still going to be way lower. And as we know, just because capacity is high doesn't mean those units are going to be built, right? LA didn't see this capacity and build 10 million units out of nowhere. They just met the current demand at that time. And so that's what needs to happen here in Honolulu, okay? So if we look at this, the zoned capacity is for another 39,000 units, and Honolulu estimates it's going to take us 20 years to get there. Okay, we need over 65,000 units today. And so if we go if we continue on this path of about 2,000 per year, we're going to be short 75,000 units by 2030. In 10 years, our shortage is projected to get worse. If we adopt the Singapore model and are able to build about an additional 3,000 units of state units per year, we're still going to be about 45,000 units short by 2030, okay? So again, adopting that Singapore model is great and we should definitely pursue it, but it's not going to be enough either. We need more, okay? What has been done on across the nation? We can look at Minneapolis, who has passed a law increasing zoning in single-family areas, okay? Minneapolis freed itself from the stranglehold of single-family homes. It made headlines across the nation. Now in every unit, every single plot of housing unit, they can build up to a triplex. They're no longer limited in building a single-family unit on that land. Oregon followed it up, becoming the first state to ditch single-family zoning. The legislature votes to essentially ban single-family zoning. They can build up to fourplexes in their entire state for cities that are over 25,000 people, okay? That's what they've decided. They recognized that zoning was precluding their housing construction. They didn't want to continue to build out, they wanted to build up, and so they increased their capacity, okay? California, similar boat, as we've seen, their cities are completely extremely housing shortage. They're trying to pass this SB 50 that would pretty much do the same, increase their capacity, raise the amount of zoning that's allowed near transit, into apartments, things like that. And then in residential areas, they would do away with single family zoning entirely. It didn't pass, unfortunately, but thankfully it's getting a lot of attention and progress is being made. So to me, it is definitely time to increase zoning, allow denser development in residential areas. Single family areas should be able to build fourplexes, areas near rail and high capacity bus should be able to build apartments. This clock, I think, is just a great representation of the need that we have, okay? Who supports this? Barack Obama's administration in 2016 came out with his zoning plan that included, over the past 3 decades, local barriers to housing development have intensified. The accumulation of such barriers, including zoning, other land use regulations, and lengthy development approval processes, has reduced the ability of many housing markets to respond to growing demand. Okay, it's not just Barack Obama. Bernie Sanders also believes in this. We need to end exclusionary and restrictive zoning ordinances and replace them with zoning that encourages racial, economic, and disability integration that makes housing more affordable. Okay, don't like those 2 Democrats? Here's another one for you. Joe Biden. Exclusionary zoning has for decades been strategically used to keep people of color and low-income families out of certain communities. He has said that he will enact legislation to develop a strategy for inclusionary zoning, so on and so forth, okay? Exclusionaries, housing nonprofits. It's not just politicians that are saying things. The people that are actually dealt with helping provide affordable housing agrees. SB 50, which is that California bill, offers our Bay Area region and state a critical opportunity to produce badly needed housing so that all of our neighbors have a place to call home, no matter their race or income. Okay, this is trending. This is part of the rhetoric that's going around now. It's time for Honolulu, who again has one of the worst shortages in the nation, one of the worst shortages in the world, to step up and stop precluding ourselves from building housing. Okay. Just for a definition, if you're looking for exclusionary zoning, here it is. You can read that later if you'd like. And what does this mean? Okay, here's these zoning standards within Honolulu. Okay, minimum lot area. Most of Honolulu is in this R3.5, R5, R7.5 zoning area. Okay, and it pretty much means you need 5,000 square feet or more for an R5. In order to build 1 single family home. If you want to build 2 homes, you need even more area to do so. But at no point can you build a triplex or 4-plex unit. So this is excluding those more affordable type units from being built. And where does this fall, right? Where are these units that we're talking about, okay? Here is zoning information from the city. And what we're going to focus on is these residentially zoned areas, okay? We're just going to take a trip around the islands to take a look and see what this looks like, okay? Here's the primary urban center, and you can see all this yellow, okay? These are all areas that are banning multifamily affordable units from being built in their neighborhoods, right? Okay, Kali'i, Nu'uanu, Punch Bowl, Upper Makiki, Manoa, we have Palolo, Wilhelmina Rise, Kaimuki, Kahala. All of these areas, right, have the potential for being able to build more homes, but it's against the law to do so. So these are the areas that definitely need to allow for more multifamily units. And then in this corridor, right, along where the rail is going to be, along some high capacity bus lines, is where we could build more apartment units, right? We can continue taking a trip. Here's Hawaii Kai and the land in between it. These are 7,500 square foot lots that only 1 family can live on. They cannot build more than 1 unit per that lot. So plenty of opportunity to build. Kailua, Kaneohe, again, plenty of yellow area to build more housing. Okay, West Side, Waipahu, Eva, tons of yellow. The green is parks, by the way, parks and recreation. Okay, tons of yellow, tons of sprawl. If we want it to be more dense, we have the opportunity. West Side, Waianae. Here's Mililani, Wahiwa, tons of yellow. North Shore. And the cost, if we were to build these kind of units, what would it cost? And here are just some general estimates. Land is about $1 million. Construction cost for a 4-plex could be $720,000. So the total cost for land and construction is about $1.7 million. If that's a 4-plex, the per unit cost is about $430,000 per unit. These are not going to come with an HOA fee generally, right? It's just a standalone unit. You don't have all of the other amenities that need to come with a condo unit. If there was to be a mortgage on this type of property, the per unit mortgage cost would be $1,642, right? It's not exactly going to be passed on to the consumer, right? Rent is probably going to be higher than this, but these are new constructed units, right? Built at cost in the $1,600 per month range, okay? Let's take a look. Does this add up? Now, there are some areas that have been grandfathered in where fourplexes and multifamily units are available. Here's a unit that was built in 2015, sold in 2018. That is on a 6,000 square foot plot of land that was sold for $1.5 million, okay? Per unit. It is only a 3-unit building, but the per unit cost here is $500,000. And so it's already profitable for construction companies to build these types of units and sell them at reasonable prices. So this is already happening. Again, this was just sold a few years ago. Here's what it looks like, okay? This is a very nice unit that I think any of us would be happy to live in. These aren't, you know, just throwaway, uninhabitable units. Here's another one, a little bigger. The land is still only 4,600 square feet. 5 units are squeezed into this one. A couple studios are in there. But again, the price is 1.8 million. Per unit is 370,000. The mortgage cost would be $1,400 per unit. Again, new unit market rate, $1,400 for the mortgage cost per unit. Okay, very affordable. This is doable. This is possible. This is something we can adopt to. And again, this is what it looks like, okay? Pretty fair. If we can build more of these units, that's going to, again, drop the price of the existing units down to make rent affordable for everybody. If you have the opportunity to have a rent price around $1,400 in a new unit, you're gonna have to offer less price for an older unit, more dilapidated unit, okay? And the question always comes up is, do we want these types of units in our neighborhoods, right? Is this something that the community is going to be able to support? To me, the question is simple. Right now, we are in a crisis. The idea that this type of unit is unacceptable is just kind of another excuse as to why we shouldn't take policies that are going to help those in need. But to take it a step further, these units already exist, right? They just don't exist in the multifamily facet that we're used to or that we want. Here's a unit. This is just as big, but this isn't a multifamily unit. This is a single family home in Kailua, just as big as these multiplex that we're proposing, but instead it's illegal for this to be split up into multiple families, right? The Honolulu zoning code says this type of unit is legal for one family to live on, but 4 families is not okay. And so we already have plenty of large scale homes. We are just making it illegal for many families to live in. Here's another one, right? These are common. These are all over Kahala. You could find these in Hawaii Kai and so on and so forth, right? The issue is we've made it legal for big housing units to exist for the wealthy, not for the those in need and the rest of us, okay? Here's another one. Again, plenty of large scale units are available, just not for those who need it. So in conclusion, homes are good. It's very possible for us to solve this issue. All we need to do is change our zoning code and make sure we get out of the way so more units can be built. And this isn't, again, a one-size-fits-all model. It's just part of the puzzle that can help us bring the overall cost of housing down and increase our capacity. So thanks for your time. I apologize if I went long, but I hope I was somewhat informative and helpful. So I would like to take questions if you folks have any.
Thank you, Nate. That was amazing. Does anybody have questions?
I have one. Oops.
Evie, you're on mute.
Mute. There you
Okay.
go.
You know, the threeplex or fourplex homes,
Mhm.
are those regarded monster homes? Are those the ones that have been getting bad billing?
So currently the monster homes are technically single family homes. The zoning only allows for single family homes, and the developers have come in and um, skipped over the spirit of the law to build a unit that should not really exist. And so the city has come in and changed the laws to make these monster homes illegal. But no, the threeplex and fourplex would be a legal model that actually splits the plot of land into 3 or 4 units. So no, they're not the exact same thing. They're quite different.
Okay, so what's the difference in the laws? Why is one legal and one is not?
So currently the monster homes were able to find a loophole to be able to just build this very large sized home and just put a bunch of rooms in it, but it technically fit the standard. A threeplex or a fourplex is currently against the law. So the developers just found a little loophole, exploited it. And so what I'm proposing and what California and Minneapolis and Oregon are proposing is saying we need to make it legal to build 4 units on one plot of land.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
So Nate,
Yeah, sure.
that's basically kitchens, right? I mean, they kind of count how many kitchens, is that it, to determine how many families are there?
Yeah, so that's a easy definition is if you have more than 2 kitchens, and kitchens are easily to sort of get around. A kitchen requires a stove, sink, and a fridge. And so if you have 2 kitchens that each have 3 of those, then it would technically be a 2-unit home. And yeah, those would be illegal. And we see in the mortgage industry, plenty of those homes already exist. And so people will just take the stove out. And now you have a single family home, even though it really hasn't.
So this is Sujata. I thought, Nate, last year they passed an ordinance where you could build 4 homes on one unit, one lot. Wasn't that passed last year, sometime in the last year's legislation? I forget what.
That was the city.
That was
Bill
what?
45? That was the city, but that was already for things that were zoned multifamily, for apartments. That wasn't for single family homes.
Oh, so it was for 4 separate apartments, wasn't it? That you
Yeah,
could build 4 separate apartments?
you could do like 3-story walk-ups, and they reduced the requirements. You didn't have to put in an elevator, that sort of thing. Right. They reduced the cost of construction on multi, but that was only for areas that were already zoned that way.
Oh, I see. Not for specific areas. Okay. And Nate, you're proposing that we have this option in any area or all over Honolulu?
To me, that's what I think makes most sense, and that's how Oregon and Minneapolis were able to get it passed. Is they didn't pick winners and losers. They didn't say this area over here is going to be where all the poor people get to move, and this wealthy area over here gets to hold on to its single-family zoning. They said everybody is a community together. We're not going to continue this segregation, not picking winners and losers. So to me, that makes sense. Politically, obviously, we haven't been able to do it yet, but who knows what the council will say. The zoning change advocates had big champions within the Honolulu City Council, or I'm sorry, the Minneapolis City Council, and as well as the Speaker of the House in Oregon were really proponents of this, which made it a lot better, right? If we had the mayor or Scott Psyche or someone like that being a big fan, we could probably get that done. But it's very possible that the result of this might be only the primary urban center or something like that. But to me, yeah, everywhere should have it.
Nate? Hi, this is Tom Brandt. Of all the yellow areas you showed on the map, what percentage of it is vacant land?
Very little, if any at all.
Okay. So what happens in the other jurisdictions you've referred to, if the incentive, how do you incentivize existing property owners and homeowners to do this? you can't force them to do it just by changing the zoning and allowing more units per square foot, right?
Yeah. So this is where it kind of gets into it. Is right now it's already illegal for them to do it, and so if we make it legal, at least the process can start. And the incentive is in terms of you can get a lot of rent, right? If you have 1 unit on your property now, you turn it into a 4 unit, you can get 3 rents and then, live in your own unit, and you can just make a lot of money. It'd be very profitable to do that. So the incentive is there. If for some reason the law changes and nothing gets built, then you could have that discussion of, how you can get more people to do it. But the profit incentive it would be very high.
That's what you're banking on then. There'd be enough homeowners and landowners who the profit motive want them to redevelop and expand and accommodate more people per square foot, right?
Yeah, and
homeowners who don't want to do this would not be forced, even if the zoning changed, right?
Correct. Yeah, if you like your home and you don't want to change it, you don't have to. By no means would this push people to do anything with their land. It would just remove the barrier for them to do it now, right? And the proof in that this is kind of profitable already is in the monster home model, right? Developers have come in and said, there's a huge market for rental units. We are willing to even almost break the law to give these units to people. And so if it were just legal and you could actually build proper units, I think it would be very easy and accessible for developers and incentivized for them to do it.
Just another thought. Peter Savio addressed this group a week or so ago. And in case you're not already aware of it, he advocates for doing Hawaiian homelands. The Department of Hawaiian Homelands for decades has not been funded sufficiently or has been incompetent in other ways to build housing on homelands, and the land is already there. So just as an idea, thought, consideration, or discussion, if you can't get anywhere with on regular residential property, that might be another way to political strategy, another avenue you might be able to pursue to try to get this kind of stuff done. I mean, the zoning problem would be different, I think. I don't know. I mean, depends on, I don't know off the top of my head how much Hawaiian homelands is zoned ag versus residential, but it'd be something maybe to think about or check out.
Yeah. Hawaiian homelands, I think, obviously takes precedence before any of our non-Hawaiian concerns in the first place.
Well, but Savio's argument is if you could build houses on Hawaiian homeland, that would free up housing elsewhere as well and bring rents down, like you're, basically the same endpoint as you're trying to get to, or similar.
Yeah, and working with the folks who are in charge there would be great. Yeah. So I know Stanley has a few questions. Sorry, did I cut someone? Yeah, so Stanley was asking. He says, in one of the slides, you pointed out that building new housing causes area rents, property values to decrease. Isn't that proof that neighbors are right to oppose new development in their community? And this is the same argument for people to say, oh, well, I'm a business owner, and so if my cost of employees go up, well, then I'm going to oppose it, right? And the question is pretty simple. Do we want to live in a society where the low-income folks are exploited, or do we want to live in a world where we all have just and basic necessities? I'm not going to sit here and say that this is a everybody wins game. Some people are going to have to bear the burden of making sure people can afford their basic needs. If that's not something we can get behind, then so be it. The second question says, shouldn't people have the right to select a neighborhood and pay more for their homes with low density? The low density is why people decided to move into that neighborhood. Again, this exclusionary policy is creating winners and losers. If they want to, if these people really care for low density, they could buy up the whole neighborhood if they wanted, and then they wouldn't have to develop it, right? If they find it so incredibly important. If they find it so incredibly important not to live near poor people, then buy all of the area near you so you don't have to live near them, right? We're not making you develop high density areas. We're just saying the city isn't going to protect you from the encroachment of poors. So, that's to me, I think the simple issue is this continued coddling of the wealthy in terms of keeping the low income and needy folks from being able to afford their basic needs to end.
Brett Hill said that the cheapest way to build housing is high rises. I was skeptical about that, but he maintains that you want the lowest price per unit. You put people in high rises. And of course, you know, I was part of the group that went to both Singapore and Hong Kong, and it's quite clear that that's how they house that population. They put them in high rise.
Yeah, and by all means, we should continue to go for that approach as well. By no means is this saying we should only have fourplex units. It's saying in addition to the Singapore model, in addition to the rental housing revolving fund, in addition to high density units, we should also allow this other option. So yeah, by no means is this saying ban those, just don't ban this.
Is he right that high rises are cheaper per unit than the kind of housing you're dealing with?
Well, I can't speak for certain. I mean, as you can tell from the units that are already for sale, the per unit cost is like 300,000 or 400,000. That seems to be somewhat near the high density cost also. But at this day, you know, if one is slightly more or slightly less, it's kind of splitting hairs. We need all of the potential options we can have.
I was unclear. Are you saying that we need like about 7,500 units a year from now until 2030?
If we want to solve the shortage, assuming a similar rate of growth, we would need about 10,000 new units to solve the shortage by 2030. If we want to extend it out to 2035, we could probably get there at, you know, 7,500 units per year.
Did you say at Singapore's ratio, they're only doing 5,000 a year?
Yeah, if we were to adjust that to our population, yeah, they're about 5,400 units per year or something like that.
And that's frightening. That we only be doing, that we need to do almost twice as much as Singapore. My gosh, I got to step back on that one.
Well, that's why we need all of the different options working, right? That's why there isn't one solution here. And the good thing about this alternative is that this is all private money.
Yes, exactly.
It's
Sorry.
a fantastic presentation, Nate. I mean,
Yeah.
really, it's one of the best I've seen.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.